Greetings, everyone. My name is Cinzia Donato, R&D Manager at Scailyte, focusing on women's health. Today, I'm happy to present our fourth and final episode of Scailyte's endometriosis interview series. Scailyte is a precision medicine company based in Switzerland. We have developed our proprietary machine learning algorithms called the SkyVision platform. Starting from single-cell data and clinical datasets, we discover unique cell populations and clinically relevant biomarkers for diagnostic, prognostic, or treatment options. SkyVision has discovered a variety of biomarkers tackling projects in the immunology and oncology space, as well as women's health. Together with the University of Bern and Inselspital Bern, Scailyte is on a mission to advance endometriosis research and knowledge through biomarker discovery. Globally, 1 in 10 women of reproductive age is affected by endometriosis, yet many people are unaware of this irreversibly debilitating disease. Endometriosis is a chronic disease characterized by the growth of endometrial tissue outside of the uterus, causing inflammation, pain, and often infertility. On average, it takes 10 years for women suffering from the disease to get diagnosed. Diagnosis, treatment, and management of the disease are fields with a lot of room for improvement. In this endometriosis awareness series, we have interviewed prominent exponents and stakeholders to discuss awareness, challenges, and opportunities in endometriosis. Just a little disclaimer, when we speak about girls and women, we also refer to transgender and non-binary individuals. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Sreya Dasari. Hi, Sreya.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. Sreya is a 19-year-old young woman who has struggled with heavy periods, severe cramping, and iron deficiency since she was 11 years old. Her pediatrician left her symptoms untreated because they seemed normal for any girl with an early period. Fortunately, after switching to her current general practitioner, she was able to receive treatment for her symptoms. Thank you, Sreya, for being with us again. I'm going to ask the first question. What was your journey like from first experiencing endometriosis symptoms until you were diagnosed with endometriosis?
So my journey began at a very young age. I got my first period at around the age of 10. And since then, I have struggled with heavy bleeding, severe cramping, lower back pain, and iron deficiency, and some other symptoms too. Unfortunately, my pediatrician didn't take any of my symptoms seriously enough because they seemed it was normal because I had my period at a very early age, and also that it could be genetic because some of the women in my family had it at a young age too. So my symptoms were not considered my own, but were generalized with everyone else's medical history or the age that women or girls go through, or the usual woman's reproductive system. And unfortunately, my symptoms were not investigated until I had changed doctors and until I have moved to my general practitioner. And after I went to the ER in 2021, so at that point I was 17. And I went to the ER because I was having severe abdominal pain, cramping, and I also fainted earlier that day. And it was just a lot where I knew, okay, this is the point that I have to go. And that's when we started to figure things out at the age of 17.
Wow, that's quite early. Which treatment options were proposed to you? Which did you choose and how effective were they?
Mm-hmm. So initially, I wasn't given any treatment options in the ER because the doctors really thought that I was too young. So apparently 17 is too young to have endometriosis. And after talking to a friend of mine who's a midwife, and she's seen me struggle with my symptoms for years, she really suggested that I strongly put effect on my symptoms and really talk about them. And after that, I went to see a gynecologist. And the first treatment option that I was offered was the birth control pill. So we started off with that, I think in around August, and then I took it for a few months, and it helped with the heavy bleeding, but I still had bleedings every now and then during the week, and that made me feel really insecure because I didn't know if that was going to affect me in other ways. I sometimes had to skip social activities because it just came out of nowhere, and that really didn't help me at all. During that time, I also had an appointment with a nutritionist who explained the background of how food helps or how food can make a change and a difference to our bodies, especially during the time that we go throughout our periods. But also with endometriosis, there are foods that can make the pain a lot more severe or decrease the symptoms. So that really helped. I didn't have to make too many changes because I was already having a healthy food intake, but there were things, let's say red meat, which is high in iron, just adding a few of those things that helped me as well. Unfortunately, that birth control pill didn't help at the beginning. So I went back to the gynecologist and we talked about other options. And I also saw a few gynecologists before actually deciding on one. But some of the suggestions were the IUD. One of them was trying a different pill, or some also recommended the laparoscopy. And after really thinking about it, I had a laparoscopy in December of 2021. And at that point, I had just turned 18. And that was a big decision that I had to make. I had to make the decision at the age of 17, deciding, am I gonna go under the knife or not? Is it worth it? Are we gonna find something or not? And that was just a lot, even emotionally, thinking I'm gonna be on bed rest for at least 2-3 weeks until I can go back to work and go back to school after surgery. So after surgery, I was put on a different pill, and I've been using that ever since. And that has helped me a lot. It has helped me with my cramps and my back pain, and I have a regular cycle again. Although over the last few months, the pain has been increasing with every cycle. But for that, again, I went back to the gynecologist, and I really think that it's important to always check up as soon as you have new symptoms, because your body can change from time to time. And the medication that helped you maybe 2 years ago might not help you now because you're in a different age or you're older and your body's just changing every now and then. So I also got another medication to help me with the pain so that it's not too bad when I'm usually on my period.
Wow, thank you for sharing this. How has endometriosis or the treatments that you're taking actually affecting your daily life and your career?
Okay, so since I got my period at a very young age, I remember going to school and I had to miss out at least the first 2 to 3 days of school because I had the worst pains, like cramps and bloating and lower back pain. And I used to bleed through the biggest pad almost every hour. So I had to rush to the bathroom and get changed every hour. So during my 5 years of middle and high school, I missed out a lot of school because of that. And at that point, I didn't have a regular cycle either. So it was very, out of the blue. I would maybe have it every 10 to 14 days, my period, or sometimes every 3 weeks. And then I would have a 2-week break and then we'll go back. So it has influenced my daily life a lot, especially growing up as a young girl. And I mean, I did take pain medication to help it, but obviously it didn't help to the point where I could still go out and, I would say, enjoy my daily life as it was. So with that, I also had to take a break for 8 to 10 months. That's during the time period of February 2022 to around October of 2022, where I didn't go to work and I didn't go to school. And at the same time, I also had IBS, which is a gastrointestinal problem, and that had influence on my symptoms as well. Most of them were underlying, but with the woman's reproductive system, it's really hard to say, is it something that goes under the reproductive system, as in you going to the gynecologist, or if it's something else, like your bowel in your stomach. So that time was actually really rough because I couldn't have a social life. I could barely go outside. I was on bed rest most of the days because I was just in so much pain. I was going through so many procedures that sometimes I couldn't even eat food because I had to have an empty stomach for my procedures. And at that time, I was just, going with the flow, understanding my body, seeing if the medication helps, seeing if the birth control really helps long term or not. So it really affected my daily life and career because I had just started with my apprenticeship and I was about to finish my apprenticeship. And that just, I had to pause that there. And now I'm graduating a year later. And for some, it might not be a big thing. For me back then, it was a big thing. It had a huge influence on my mental health. And sometimes we forget the connection between our physical and mental health, but both have an influence on each other. And that was really big for me as well. During that time, I also realized the moments leading up to me missing out school and work, every month when I would miss school or work, people didn't understand what endometriosis is or what we women have to go through, or they don't pay attention to women's health or their bodies because they think it's just a little bit of pain, right? Those cramps and those pains. But you as a person, only you can know how worse it is, and no one else can actually feel it for you. And I think that's something that people usually forget about. They think, I've been through that too, so I feel you. But do you really feel that? Like, I do understand that a lot of other women also go through that, but it might not be as severe for them as it was for me or any other woman, because everyone's body is different. Everybody's pain tolerance is different. So as a young woman, it had a huge effect on my daily life and my career and my schooling. Yeah.
Thank you for saying this. And a follow-up question, based on your experience, your personal experience, how important is it to address women's health from a very young age then?
It is literally the most important thing ever, because you live in this body from the time you're born until you die, and you are the one who can take care of it. And if you don't get educated on it and about it, you don't know how to take care of it, right? It's like, who else is going to take care of it? You need to understand your own body. And for that, you need to get the education. And it's not just enough if you go to the doctor and express your symptoms. Sometimes, again, for me, it took almost 6 years until someone actually looked at my symptoms. That almost, if I would have not changed to a general practitioner, that would have taken almost a decade until someone looked at my symptoms, which if you're in your mid-20s, it could be bad, because that's when you might want to have kids, or that's like the age where, everything starts. And I also feel like, I remember in, I think, 5th or 6th grade, we went to the gynecologist as a class, and we did learn about the reproductive system, and we were taught about periods, what it is to go through your cycle, what's having a period like, why do we even have periods, just like the general questions. But I had never heard the term endometriosis until I was 16, 17, until I got to the point of realizing something is really wrong. And I think everyone should learn and understand their bodies from the moment that they're aware of themselves. I feel like from the age of 4 or 5, like little kids, if they fall down, they bleed, they realize something's wrong, right? And that's something that you see because it's on the outside. But everything on the inside, a lot of the times we just hide it because it's on the inside. But those are the symptoms that can lead up to something bigger. So therefore, we need to get educated, no matter what it is. Our bodies, you live in them. Again, you can't ruin them. It's in your hands, and you can't buy back health. That's one thing that my parents always tell me. Even if you have the money, you cannot always buy it back. So you have to take care of it. And to be able to take care of it, you need to know what it does and how it works.
Very wise words, Sreya. And also wise words from your parents. It's a great sentence that you just said. So how important is it to receive a definite diagnosis for your symptoms or for your pain?
For me, looking back, it is very important because, as I mentioned in the beginning, I was 17 when I was in the ER, and I had just turned 18 right before I had surgery. And here in Switzerland, once you turn 18, you're an adult and you have to make all your decisions on your own. And I was there with my gynecologist before surgery, a week before surgery. And I was given a list with questions about my body, about options, which rather seemed like a negative, but yet a positive thing. It's to save my body from harm. But one of the questions was like, what if we find endometrial tissue on your ovaries? Is it okay if we cut it out? Which would mean that you won't be able to have kids in the future. And to me, as an 18-year-old, I was, I just had to take a moment and get myself together. And I always knew that I want to have kids in the future. So that played a huge role with what I was going to say. So it was important that I know what's going on. I wanted to know the diagnosis. Is it there? Is it not there? What are the options? What can we do in the future? How can we avoid it? Or how can we figure out things at an early stage and not, push it out until you're in your mid-20s, where they're like, oh yeah, it's common to have it in your mid-20s, but not in your early or late teenage years. And having a diagnosis, it just gives me clarity. And also with mental health, if for someone that struggles with anxiety, if I don't have that clarity, it's just going to go through in my mind over and over again. And that's not good for your mental health either. So it's not only this diagnosis, every other diagnosis that I've received so far, it has helped me to stand up for my symptoms, for my body, and know what I'm going through. And also say this is fair. If I cannot attend an event, if I cannot go and have the social life that I want to have, I know there's a reason behind it. I have this diagnosis, and that is holding me back from living a normal life or a life that I wish to have, which I can't because I have this and that.
It helped basically not only get clarity and that mental space that you need to then deal with the disease itself, but it also made you aware much faster and much sooner about the important life choices that you need to take. It made you kind of wiser, I would say, right? Now you know what you want from your life, but what you can have in your life. It's really insightful. What needs to be done to raise awareness, endometriosis awareness, and empower other patients, in your opinion?
So first and foremost, education. Over the last 2 years, when I would speak to friends or work colleagues and they would ask me, so what's up? What's the diagnosis? I would say endometriosis. And maybe 1 out of 10 people that I spoke to knew what endometriosis is. Everyone else had no idea. Even women, they had no idea what that is. They didn't know that the woman's body can actually have that, and that the symptoms that they might be facing could be endometriosis and not just normal periods, because everyone's body is different. So every time I have to talk about my health, I point that out because it's important. And especially as a young woman, I also want to be able to be a role model to others so that people can actually talk openly about it. And raising awareness about endometriosis is not just something that is in the circle of women, it's beyond that. Guys should also understand what it is, because a lot of the times, especially like at school or work, if we miss out a day or two, but you're not actually sick, right? It's not like you're down with a fever or a cough. You're going through physical pain. A lot of the times, that doesn't get acknowledged per se. And you need to tell them what is endometriosis. And I think we also have to break the stigma of hiding health issues because people think it makes you weak, which it doesn't. Because every single person has a different story, and just because you have a health issue doesn't mean it makes you weak. So talking about it is very important. And again, get educated about it. We have the internet. Go and Google it. Go and do your research. And to empower patients, I think what really has helped me is I've talked to younger girls from my school, other places where I just know younger girls, and I would tell them, if you're going through that, don't hide it. You don't have to hide it. It's your body. It's a very natural thing. You have to go and talk about it. And talking about it is how you raise awareness. If you just hide it, it's just going to be hidden. It's going to be under the rock and no one is going to know about it. And even if you go to the doctor, even if they don't take your symptoms serious enough, like they did with me at the beginning, just because you're a kid doesn't mean that you don't understand your body, right? So go for it, stand up for your symptoms, and go 10 times. Even if they don't listen the first time, go back again and again and again. And maybe at that point, they might know, okay, something is wrong. And also, the medical side, I have realized that a lot of pediatricians sometimes, they just look at the overall medical history. You know, they just look girls in general at the age of 11, 12, 13, 14, and upwards. But you could have a genetic background that no one knows about, that your doctor might not know about, and you're struggling with something, right? Those are little things that you have to stand up for. And that's when you're going to know that something's wrong. And that's maybe not just with endometriosis, with any other health issue that might come up. That's how you raise awareness, because you have to talk about it. And I think also educating not only yourself, but also the ones around you, your parents, your teachers, the school, your workplace, just telling them this is endometriosis, this is what it's about. It's not just regular periods with just extreme pain. It's more than that. It's beyond that. It could be that I can't have children. It could be that I might have another surgery in 10 years again. And raising awareness is so important, especially in areas where generally health is a taboo topic, especially periods. In so many countries, also where I come from, if you look at India, you don't really talk about periods, right? I mean, I was lucky enough to have parents who talked about it openly, and from a very young age on, they would tell me what it is and just saying, hey, you could get this one day. Don't be scared, you know, like, don't be shocked if you get this. It's a very natural thing. But oftentimes, a lot of people from, you know, rural areas, they don't know what periods are. They don't know what it does to you. What happens after you get the first period? You could get pregnant. A lot of people don't know that, right? And it's all about talking about it, sharing your experience, sharing what you've gone through, sharing what could help, encouraging other people. It's not just saying, oh yeah, you'll be fine. Yes, you might be fine, but that moment you're not fine. You can't decline someone's emotions and feelings about someone just because you've gone through it and you're fine now. But just think about the time when you weren't fine. You need encouragement to step up for it. So go and talk about it, encourage others, and it's not something that you have to talk about once. You have to keep on talking about it. Otherwise, it's just going to get shut down. You can't raise awareness if you just talk about it once. You have to repeat it over and over and over again. And I think that's also something that has to be implemented in many areas. I think one thing that I really like seeing is whenever I go to Inselspital, they have on their TV screen, you see the word endometriosis. So if someone's sitting in there, a young girl who's maybe 12, you go in there and you read that and you're like, I don't know what that is. But that's the point, you know, where you get like, oh, that's something. What is it? Is that maybe what I'm going through? Let me ask the doctor, right? That's where it starts. And I think just you need to pop it out there somewhere. You just have to throw it out there. Like, hey, there's endometriosis. This is what it is. Don't forget your symptoms, talk about it, and then we can go ahead from there.
Thank you very much, Sreya. I think we don't even need to go that far as India to actually find certain taboos about period talking. You can find them very close by in our neighborhoods here in Switzerland, but also around Europe. And yeah, you share a very valuable insight around what we talk, what we don't talk enough about. With this, I would like to thank you again very much for your time and for sharing your personal story with us. I heard resilience, I heard openness and wisdom, which are normally traits that are normally not expected by a person in her early 20s. And yet, this disease made you go through all of it and learn a great deal about a life that normally people get to know much later. This has been the fourth and final episode of our endometriosis awareness series. In this series, we heard about the specific challenges that clinicians face when dealing with endometriosis. We shed a light on gaps in research, the need for a more reliable and faster diagnosis, better treatment options, as well as the economic burden of the disease. Finally, we heard an endometriosis patient story about countless of consultations, several treatment revisions, and the toll on her personal and professional life. While covering this wide range of topics, there has been one common thread: the need for action. The incredible burden of endometriosis warrants more empathy, awareness, research, and above all, funding. Through advancing research in endometriosis and bringing innovative solutions to patients, we are on a mission to expose endometriosis early and empower women to take charge of their own lives. Let's make a difference together. Connect with us and let's discuss the future of endometriosis. We look forward to sharing the exciting advances that we have made to you first. And again, thank you for watching.